So a lot of our listeners want to know, is this a good time to buy or those sorts of things? And the question they always get, because if you're thinking about buying now, well, then historically you're always at a higher price point than you were the day before. And so there's, obviously reprehension or fear based on that, because what happens if things don't work out? So I think a part of that I think you can show some insight is if you do end up in some financial trouble and you have a mortgage and you bought, what's the foreclosure process like? What options do you have and those sorts of things? Do you have, any insight on that?
Sure. So I do foreclosures here in Nevada. Basically, Nevada is a non-judicial judicial foreclosure state.
Which means you can sell without going to court, right?
So in some states, you can only sell the property in a foreclosure sale if you file a complaint in court, go to court, file a lawsuit, and the judge gives you an order to foreclose. You can do that here in Nevada, but it's kind of rare. The more typical process is non-judicial foreclosure, where the trustee does a notice of default, and then if you don't cure the default, does a notice of sale, and then the property goes to sale, and then they have the right, the new owner has the right to kick you out of the property or evict you from the property. But there's a process to do that, because when the foreclosure crisis happened in 2008, they created safeguards again for homeowners to make sure that the foreclosure process didn't happen quickly without them having some input into
Sure.
it.
So we kind of, like last week, we specifically spoke about, or it was a couple weeks about, AB 284, when they came in basically and said ex-nade. So explain that a little bit to people, what that meant. Like we know it basically made it, in a sense, super hard for a bank to go through with the foreclosure process once that bill was enacted. What does that specifically target, and how is the process, if you could?
If AB 284 was the foreclosure mediation bill or the homeowners bill of rights?
The foreclosure mitigation.
Okay, so in 2009, the state of Nevada passed the foreclosure mediation bill.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's changed. It first started as you had to petition. You had to check off a box and petition with the Supreme Court for foreclosure mediation. Well, they let the foreclosure mediation program sunset, but then they brought it back. And they brought it back and they changed it. So now you actually have to file a petition with your local district court.
Okay.
And then what happens after that is now you have 30 days to do it after you get your notice of default.
Okay.
So you have to elect into it. It's not automatic. So if you don't elect into it, you don't get to go to foreclosure mediation.
Okay.
And so let me take a step back. So in Nevada, to foreclose on a residential property that's owner occupied, and owner occupied means you live there.
Yep.
You have to get what's called a foreclosure mediation certificate. And once you get that certificate, then the trustee can record the notice of sale.
Okay.
So what happens is when you elect into mediation, it stops the certificate process and allows the parties to go through a process where they can resolve the dispute they have or give options. It's not even really a dispute. It's more of, it's a chance for the parties to get together and to discuss.
So in the normal foreclosure process, when someone owner doesn't respond here in Nevada, keeping it simple, it's basically 120 days. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, you have a 35-day period for a breach letter.
Okay,
so
and then
you
120.
do the notice of default. So it's about 155 days.
Okay, 155 days. Okay. So if they elect to do this mediation, how long does it take to get in front of a mediator, and how far does it push that back?
Very great question.
Well, see, I do mediation, so that's a very good question. Usually the mediation, so you have 30 days to petition. Most people wait till the very end to get that extra time.
Okay.
And
you're savvy, you should.
Yeah, you wait till day 29 or whatever.
Right. No, I would. If I were you, I wouldn't wait till day 30 because you don't want to be at the steps of the courthouse. Do it a day or two before.
Yeah,
probably best.
28 days.
But
and then the loan servicer has to file. The loan servicer, the beneficiary who's represented by a loan servicer. Let me explain what a loan servicer is, because I don't think most people understand the difference between a beneficiary and a loan servicer.
Break that down, because people listening don't.
Okay, so when you sign your note, you
promissory note.
Your promissory note.
Yep. Promise to pay back the loan.
Yep. So here's my loan. I promise to pay it back.
So the person who holds that's called the note holder.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's a deed of trust, which secures the note, because the note is just a piece of paper.
Sure.
I'll make the distinction between the note. The note's only between the borrower and the lender. The deed of trust gets recorded against the property, so it's a lien against the property.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Yep.
And then they could be two separate entities, by the way. And usually when you sign your deed of trust, there may be a separate beneficiary from the note holder. But in order to foreclose, they have to be the same entity. So a lot of people may see a deed of trust. A lot of the people see a deed of trust that's made, that where the beneficiaries MERS, mortgage electronic registration systems. What happens is when the foreclosure is about to happen, or at some point the deed of trust gets transferred or assigned to whoever the current note holder is. Okay, so the note holder and the beneficiary hires a loan servicer. A loan servicer is like the one who is like, I guess would be your bank, is the one who
you
make
like
your
a
payments
collection
to.
agency,
Right.
In a way.
In a way. Not quite
Yeah.
the regular collection agency. And there's actually some interesting jurisprudence about it, but that would be for another time. But
Yeah,
we're going to get steamrolling already as you go on that one, man.
Right.
Wake up, everybody. We're getting
One thing at a time.
Yeah, but the loan servicer is like, it could be like Bank of America or Wells Fargo. It could be PHH Mortgage. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
There's lots of
Could be
loan
me.
servicers out the country. It could be an individual.
Okay.
And so the loan servicer acts on behalf of the beneficiary and the note holder of the deed of trust. They become their pretty much their attorney. Attorney in fact.
They're their hired gun.
So think about. Sorry.
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
So when you take out a mortgage, right? You're taking out money and you're paying interest, and that's how they make their money.
Yep.
The people who actually make that money are usually investment pools. Just people who have interest in trust and entity, right? And they're all taking a percentage of all these different loans. That's where the money actually goes to.
Okay.
They don't do anything. They're passive investors. Okay, so the servicer is the person that's just like, kind of like what Rick does for property management.
Yeah.
Same sort of handling all the loans.
Yeah.
And they don't even know what's going on.
They do all the work, yeah.
Okay, and so I think for the listeners, Ramey, correct me if I'm wrong, so, for people who have no idea what we're talking about, from your perspective, you take out a loan to buy a house, okay? The question then becomes, if I don't pay it, what's the consequences, right? So first thing, Ramey, what happens if you don't make your payment on the due date, usually the first of the month?
So if you don't make your payment on the due date, they'll send you a notice of intent to foreclose, an accelerate letter.
And how many days after that?
That's 35 days.
So that's just you've got to miss 3 payments though.
No, the first
No, you can
payment.
miss
The first
one.
payment.
You can miss one, but
Okay.
I think the general rule of thumb is you miss 3 because they don't want, because it's an
Yeah.
expensive process.
Well,
They
okay,
don't want to
technically, I
foreclose.
guess.
Yeah.
All right, so
I'm used to seeing 30.
the earliest you miss the payment,
90, sorry.
miss the payment on the first, the earliest you will get notice that's 35 days later that says, which by the way, 35 days means you missed another one, which says, hey, you haven't paid, pay up, right?
No, correction. The first thing they do before they can do a notice of default is they have to send you a 35-day notice to cure.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And how long?
But you won't receive that until
1 to
You
3
default
months.
until you default.
Okay.
1 to 3 months.
Okay.
After you miss a payment.
Okay.
Okay, then once you receive that letter, that's when you can begin loss mitigation process. A lot of people don't even get to the foreclosure mitigation process because they call their lender and go, "Hey, I need a forbearance.
Yeah, how can we work this out?
How can we work this out?
Yep.
Can I get a loan modification? And can I get a short sale or short payoff or whatever?"
But assuming they don't call, you're looking at 1 to 3 months before
Correct.
you get that notice.
Okay.